Hey guys, Lee with LG Speed and Custom here, and in this video we are back wiring my 32 Ford. So this is part 2 on wiring my 32 Ford. We're wiring this whole car from scratch. In video 1, we covered how to make a fuse panel and how to get power to your fuse panel, how to have 12 volt power, how to have key power, circuit breaker, relays, stuff like that. Make it work with the key. We wired up our Stewart Warner gauges, found out that the original flathead Ford sending units do not work with the Stewart Warner gauges, so we've got new sending units coming for that. In the meantime, the wires are run to where they need to go, so when the sending units come, we can just swap them out and hook them up. We hooked up our fuel gauge, and then we started on our taillights. We powder coated the original 32 Ford taillight stands, and we ran into a bit of an issue with a taillight, and that's where we decided to call it quits. We had a broken socket, so I've since remedied that. It was super easy. In my parts box inside the car, I had a third tail light, and there was nothing wrong with that, so I just put that one on the car. Problem solved, easy peasy. So now we're gonna work on making these tail lights come on with the switch. Again, in the last video, we mounted our switch panel underneath the dash here, so we've got a switch for the horn, headlights, wipers, and then this fourth hole here will eventually be for a heater. So our light system is pretty simple. We've got a tail light, another tail light, a headlight, and a headlight. License plate light is built into this tail light. On the dash, we've got our toggle switch that is going to activate them all. And on our fuse panel, we've got, obviously our, I think this is the 12 volt one, this is the keyed one, and then we've got a headlight relay. So for starters, we are going to take power off of our 12 volt side, and it is going to go to one side of our toggle switch. We flick our toggle switch on, and that is going to take power out of our toggle switch, go to one tail light, and then we'll bridge across to the other tail light. There will be a fuse in our fuse panel here. So we've got power going in, you flick the switch, power goes out, tail lights come on. Boom, easy peasy. On this same terminal, we're gonna have another wire that goes to our 3 gauges, so that when you flick the switch on, they get power and our 3 gauge lights come on. Now our headlights we're gonna run through a relay. And if you'll remember, to video 1, when we talked about relays, we've got our main power feed coming from the battery into the car to our circuit breaker, and then off the other side of our circuit breaker, we've got our big main power feed stud. We are going to be pulling power to the headlights off of that stud. So our relay is going to have one wire going to that stud, one wire going to a ground. This wire here is going to go to our lights to make them turn on. And what this does is it pulls straight, like uninterrupted power from our main power stud straight to the headlights. And that way you get optimum, the brightest headlights you can get. And it does not put the load of the headlights through our switch. But we need to turn this relay on still. And that is super straightforward. We're just going to have our fourth wire, our trigger wire, tie into there. So we'll have our power going here. That's just going to feed 3 little lights and 2 little lights. Totally fine for totally enough load, like the correct amount of load that toggle switch can handle. And then our toggle switch, when it gets power, will trigger our relay and pull heavy power from our source here to our headlight switch. Oh, hold up though. I forgot one thing. Dimmer switch. We need a dimmer switch. Dimmer switch I've already got mocked up in the car. So this wire, instead of going to the headlight switch, scratch that. Got ahead of myself here. That is actually going to go into the dimmer switch. And then out of our dimmer switch, it has 2 out terminals. There's 3 terminals on the dimmer switch. The one that goes in, and then we've got our low beam and our high beam. Our low beam will go to each light, and then our high beam will go to each light. So you turn the toggle switch on, triggers the relay, sends power to the dimmer switch, and then depending on if it's in its open or closed position, you step on it, goes to the low beam, or you step on it again, goes to the high beam. Makes sense? That's what we're gonna do. So because we're at the beginning of wiring this car, the only circuit we're using right now is this one right here, which is for our gauges. This one is activated when the key turns on. For our lights, we want to use this switch here, which constantly has 12 volt power. That way you can turn your lights on without having the key on. So we're going to take circuit number 6, and I'm just going to put tail light right there. Not sure if you can see that, but that says tail. So that's going to be our tail light wire. We're going to run a wire from here up to our switch. Our headlight relay, I know I just said in like my little wiring diagram that we were going to pull constant power off the stud, but I got ahead of myself. That was wrong. We're going to pull that off of here. So I'm going to put head right there for headlight, and that way we can run a fuse in there. I'm going to put a 30 amp fuse on that circuit, and our tail lights are going to be a 10 amp fuse. Those are falling out. I don't want to actually click the fuses in until we're done wiring, because as soon as I put the fuse in there, that terminal then becomes live. So I ran a wire from here up, followed this harness along nicely over to this side, where it then runs along through these Adele clamps here and goes into one side of our toggle switch. That gives us power to the switch. Now when we turn the switch on, it sends power out of the switch, which I have hooked up to our 3 little gauge lights here. They're all just spliced together there. And what that does is we've got lights now. Cool, huh? So we're going to add another wire on here now that will follow this here through our firewall, and then it's going to run with our fuel gauge wire to the back and hook to the taillights. At the back of the car, our taillight wires are currently green, so I'm just going to use another roll of green just so that it all matches. Here's what I was saying about the license plate light is part of the taillight, if you didn't understand that. The bulb right here that lights up red, there's a little clear lens right here so that it shines clear down onto the license plate. Taillights should be wired. I'm gonna go hit the switch and see what happens. Kabam! We got lights. Taillights, done. Dash lights, done. Headlights, next. We've got our dimmer switch mounted down here. I still gotta put one more screw in it, but I used this screw that was already here for this piece of trim. And this puts it in a really nice spot. It doesn't interfere with the clutch or anything. It's easy to get to. So there's our dimmer switch. Here's our headlight relay. Now we've got our 4 wires coming off the relay here. The ground wire is already done. That's grounded. This red wire, this is going to be our main power in. So it is going to go up to there with a 30 amp fuse. The yellow wire is our heavy power out. See, it's labeled out on there. And this is the wire that is going to run to our dimmer switch. Then to turn all this on, to activate the relay, we've got our white wire, which is our trigger wire. And this is the wire that is going to run up through here to the switch. So when you turn the switch on, this gets electrified, which makes the relay activate, which draws big power from here and sends big power out to here into our dimmer switch. Our pigtail here, we've got 3 wires on it. So one of them is power in, and then we've got power out times 2. One power out will be low beam. Hit the button and it switches it to the other power out, which is high beam. Those go to the actual lights. So I've got the relay wired up to a 30 amp fuse up here off of our main power wire. Then our trigger wire is going up to our switch. Ground was already done. So this one goes to the dimmer switch. And that's where it got a little bit weird. Because this dimmer switch, I got this pigtail. Glenn searched really hard to find this pigtail for me. So thank you, Glenn. However, I just realized this is like 20 gauge wire on here, which is really small, especially for headlights. For example, here's some cutoffs that I was going to use to run my headlights. These are from an aftermarket wiring kit, and it's labeled, I don't know if you can see on there, high beam and low beam. These are 14 gauge. Same with this guy coming off here is a 14 gauge. So I think I'm gonna ditch this plug altogether and just use some spade connectors on the end. They'll just slide on there, which I almost did anyways because, like I said, Glenn couldn't find this plug. He searched everywhere to get it. So I feel bad not using it, but yeah, I think it's gonna be just too light duty. With headlights, you can never have too big of a wire. The smaller the wire, the more resistance it has, which means the dimmer your headlights are gonna be. So bigger wire, brighter headlights. So these cutoffs that I was gonna use for my headlights, the ones from a previous kit that have low beam and high beam on them, I'm not gonna use those because they're not long enough. So I've got some spools of 14 gauge here, blue and brown. No particular reason why I chose those colors, just, whoops, I dropped my camera. Just because they were there. So I'm gonna feed this through from the headlight bucket back towards our dimmer switch. We got a little grommet in the rad shell here where our wires come through. I had to drill those. Believe it or not, this grill shell is the only part on this entire body that is not an original 32 Ford part. It's a reproduction Vintique shell that came with the car when I got it. I do have an original shell right there that I considered putting on, but I don't know, I just didn't. So I drilled the holes, put some grommets in, and now we can take our wires, route them down along the frame rail and up through the firewall to our dimmer switch. So with both wires run, I've hooked them up to the dimmer switch now. The outputs on the dimmer switch, one's for high beam and one's for low beam, but it doesn't matter which one you use because, I mean, they both just send power to each wire. So now that they're fastened, I'm gonna go from the dimmer switch back towards the headlights and just kind of bunch the wires together and route them nice and neat, put a couple zip ties on them. And the reason why I'm going backwards this way is that way we can, you know, keep them nice and organized. If we started this way and went back, by the time we get to the dimmer switch, we might have one wire that's like an inch longer than the other, and it'll make a weird spot. These are all organized nice and neat. I got a zip tie every couple inches holding them, and then they sneak out through our little grommet there over to the other side. We follow down here. I've just got tape holding this for now. I don't want to zip tie these yet because there's still the signal light wires going in this harness that are going to go to the back and the front, I guess. So this harness here splits in two different directions here. We've got our rear harness keeps going that way, and then our front harness I've got run along with the brake line, and it comes up along the inside of the grill shell through our little grommet. We got a little bit of wiggle room in there, and now we can snip these guys off here. Bam. Now I'm gonna take these spools and do the same thing. I'm gonna feed them through the headlight here, into our grommet here, down the side of the grill shell, under the rad, and bring them back up this side of the grill shell, through here, and then we will connect them with these ones. So just like before, we've got our spool going this way, all the way through, comes up along here, through here, and we've got both our ends in here. So now we're gonna take both our blue wires and we're gonna cut and strip them, and I'm gonna put one bullet connector end on there. And that's gonna do is join these wires together. So when you turn your headlight on, the power's gonna come through our blue wire all the way down up into here, giving us power to this headlight. Because these are spliced together, it's gonna jump power from this wire through this wire over to this headlight. Gonna put bullet connectors on here, but the actual pigtails on the light themselves are not, they're gonna have a bullet connector as well. They're not gonna be hardwired. And that way, if we ever wanna take the headlights out, we can just like gently pull our wires through this little hole and expose our bullet connectors, unplug them, and our headlights are disconnected. We can unbolt them, take them off the car without having to take any wiring apart. So these are our bullet connectors, if you don't know what a bullet connector is. We got a female end, a male end. They slide together, and then you can pull them apart. When you're putting bullet connectors in, the direction that the feed goes, like our wire is going to be coming this way into the headlight and then get received by the pigtail. So the end that's always got the power coming through it, you put the female end on. And that way, if you ever like disconnect this connection and someone accidentally turns the headlight on, this is protected. If it touches the fender or something, it's not gonna arc out. If you did it the other way, if this is the end that came from your power feed and you disconnected this and somebody accidentally turns the headlight switch on while the headlights aren't plugged in, this is gonna be live, and if it touches something like your fender or whatever, it's gonna short out. So let's take, just to make it easier, let's take our wires out, get our wire strippers, and twist these together. Take some shrink tube, slide it over. Take our dielectric grease, put a little dab on there. Again, dielectric grease just keeps the moisture out. And we'll twist this on there. Grab our crimpers. Give it a crimp. I always give it a little pull test to make sure it's good. And we'll slide our shrink tube up and over the end. It'll only go so high on these bullet connectors, it won't actually get to the very end. And we'll take our lighter and just heat the shrink tube. So the shrink tube also helps keep moisture out, but it also kind of helps suck these two wires together to make for a better connection. And then we can just stuff it back through the hole. That side's done. We'll do the same with these. And then once we got these connections done, just like before, we can follow these wires now and kind of clean them up and organize them all nice and neat over to the other side. And then we'll cut them off just like we did on this side. So we've got both our headlights wired up now, or pre-wired I should say, but we still got to hook them up to the actual pigtails here. So unfortunately the wires on this store-bought pigtail that I got from Glenn, and I got another one from Peter today, they do not match the colors that I have, but that's fine. That doesn't bother me. If I was super carried away, I could de-pin this plug and put my wires in, but this is fine. So I've marked on the back of the light which terminal is high beam, which terminal is low beam, and which terminal is ground. Right, yes, there's a ground. That is this third wire that's in here that has the male bullet connector on it. And the reason I did that was just so that there's no way you could ever get the grounds mixed up. And the ground wire is never got power in it, so it doesn't matter. It just runs in our circuit here, or in our harness, and then way down inside here, I don't know if you can see, let me move this out of the way, it's just grounded right to the cross member there. Speaking of ground, somebody mentioned in the comments in the last video that I didn't cover grounds and anything. So in the video where we fired this car up, the will it run, will it drive video, I covered all the grounds in that video. And basically off of our battery post, our negative side of the battery, we've got this big lug here going to the back of the block, which grounds the engine. And there is also another one underneath somewhere, I can't remember exactly where off the top of my head, that grounds the block to the chassis, and then of course the body to the chassis. So you got your ground off the battery to the block, to the chassis, to the body, and that grounds all of it all together. So grounds are super important. So this one here grounds to the front cross member, which ties into the chassis ground. So our pigtails back here, we're gonna take our male bullet connector and attach it to our low beam wire, our high beam wire. Sorry, this is the low beam wire, high beam wire. And then the ground is gonna get a female bullet connector so that it will match the ground in here. As far as our wires here, because we've got a blue wire and a brown wire for our low beam and our high beam, it doesn't matter which one gets hooked to that, as long as if we hook our brown one to our high beam on this side, we just got to make sure that we hook our brown one to our high beam on this side so that both high beams come on at the same time. Our pigtails are all hooked up. I've decided to go, the black stripe is going to our blue wire. So on this one here, I made sure that our black stripe goes to our blue wire. Let's plug our headlights in, and in theory, this should turn on. All right, both headlights are in. Let's see what happens. Moment of truth. Oh, kerbam! Are they both on? Of course they're both on. High beams. Sweet. We got lights. Now for a high beam indicator, I'm not gonna put a high beam indicator in this dash because I can tell when I'm on high beam or low beam, but if you did wanna put a high beam indicator in your dash, all you gotta do is the little blue light that's in your dash, that wire just ties into your high beam wire so that when you hit your switch and your high beams come on, that light comes on as well. Super straightforward. I'm gonna move on to signal lights now. Originally, I got one of those just United Pacific Universal 7-wire turn signal switches. Same one that I put in the 47 Ford and the same one that we used in the Fargo. They're really easy, super easy to hook up. However, at Oh, I think it was the Luxton tractor swap meet. I scored these 3. This one's a Yankee. I can't remember what one this is, but I really like this one just because of I like the red knob on the end. And these particular ones are kind of cool because they got this little wheel that rolls on your steering wheel to cancel it. If you turn it to, hold on, I need 2 hands for this. Okay, we're in the turning position, and then as the wheel rolls on here, it turns the switch off. Let's turn it the other way. As the wheel rolls from when you're straightening out, it turns the switch off, which is pretty cool. The downside to these particular ones is they've got some pretty old frayed wiring that's all the same color because it's all faded, and I have no idea what the wiring diagram is for these. So I think I'm gonna sit down and try to decipher this, figure it out, open it up, see if maybe we can replace these wires. I don't know. Don't know. Might be able to make it work, might not. Yeah, as you can see, when this clamps on the steering column there, that just touches the back of the wheel. And then yeah, as the wheel turns on it, it turns the signal light switch off. Cool. Well, it's been a couple weeks and I finally had some time to sit down with the signal light switch and figure it out, and I think I've got it working. Unfortunately, I did not film taking it apart and going through it, mainly because I've never taken a signal light switch apart before and I wasn't 100% confident that I could figure it out and make it work, and I didn't want to film it and then be wrong and look like an idiot and then have you guys in the comments be all like, oh, you're an idiot. So, didn't film it. Good news is, I took it apart. It's actually pretty simple in there. Figured it out and I got it working, and I figured out my wiring diagram. I'm gonna show you how I did that. Come on over here, I got the notepad out. I'll draw it out for you. So when I took this harness apart, I repaired those wires, by the way. The wires are actually in pretty nice shape underneath the old electrical tape that was on there. But when I took this apart, I had to cut the plug off for the flasher. But this was key in me figuring out this wiring diagram and how I labeled everything. So let's start with that. We've got our flasher. That's where your signal lights all begin. So this flasher plugs in like that. On the back of your flasher, you've got X, P, and L. This little guy here is X, and that is your 12 volt power going in. This will come from 12 volt to X. This will come from your keyed fuse panel, so that when you turn your key on, it sends power to the fuse panel, and then you got a 5 amp fuse with a wire going to here. That's what powers your signal lights up. From there, we've got P and L. P is one of these wires, and it goes to your indicator light, which in this case, this indicator light is in here. So P goes to indicator. Our L that comes off of here, L, this guy here, that's what sends power to the actual mechanism. Inside this switch is a little mechanical guy that slides back and forth, kind of like that. So we've got our power going into there. Now we've got a third wire that has power going in. We've got 1, 2, where did that one go? This guy here, and I figured that this was a weird, like possibly a power one, because it has a different connector than the other ones. These are all bullet connectors. So that one I thought was maybe the brake light wire. So on your car, you've got your brake light switch, right? Kind of looks like that, threads in, or sometimes they're a mechanical switch that's on the pedal. So it will have 12 volt constant power coming from your constant power fuse panel into there. You step on your brakes, the pressure, or if it's a mechanical switch, the pedal movement activates the switch. Power comes out, and that would normally go to your brake lights and make your brake lights come on. However, when you hook up signal lights, You know when you stand behind the car and say you turn your left signal light on and then step on your brake light, and how only one brake light comes on and the other one keeps blinking, and then vice versa? That happens in the switch. So you need this brake light wire to go into the switch. We'll put BL for brake light. Now, coming out of the other side of the switch, we have 4 wires. A front left, a rear right, and a front right. And those are the ones that I had to figure out next. So I put power going into our signal light flasher, and then I turned the switch to the left, and I took my test light and tested each one of these wires until I found which one, or which ones, because there was 2 of them, had power. That's how we know we're left. Turn it to the right, do the same thing. And that's how I figured out which wires were for the right side. But we still need to figure out which ones are for the front and for the back. And to do that, I took my battery charger and I hooked it up to the brake light wire. Where did it go here? Anyways, doesn't matter. Oh, right there. The one with the funny end. So I put power to that, and that lit up this wire and this wire. So that's how I knew that these were for the back and these were for the front. So that's our basic wiring schematic. Now, how the lights blink, that is in the flasher. This is basically just like a big circuit breaker, more or less, that works on resistance. And when you turn your light bulbs on, or turn your switch on, and it sends power to the light bulbs, they turn on. They'll be on for a second or so. That will overload this. It trips the breaker. The lights go out for a second or so. This cools down enough because there's no resistance on it anymore. It resets. Your light turns back on. That's what the click, click, click noise is when your signal lights are on. That sound isn't really to let you know that your signal lights are on. It's the mechanical function of this flasher physically going click, 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 click as it turns on and off. There you have it, signal light wiring. So we're gonna take this, put it in the car, wire it all up based on this, and then we'll have our signal lights going. Makes sense? I think so. And that's the important part, because I'm the one that's gonna do it. Unrelated, you know how I'm hooking up my headlights on just an on-off toggle switch, and I'm not worried about having just like park lights on or headlights. My park lights and headlights, they're all gonna turn on together. Well, the other day, Chris Skilling got a hold of me and he said, hey, I know you're just hooking up to a toggle switch, but I wanna hook it up to a traditional headlight switch and have my park lights come on separate from my headlights. How do you do that? So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. I've already explained it to him, but I'll explain it to you guys too. Here's our traditional headlight switch. Now on a toggle switch, we just have power going. We'll put our toggle switch over here. We just have power going in. You flick the switch, power goes out. Boom, super easy. On a headlight switch, there is multiple terminals. So we'll start with the important one. Your battery power going in. Power going into the switch. Pull it out one click, and that is gonna send power to your tail lights, which will be on one terminal. Your dash lights, which are on another terminal. And your park lights up at the front, which are on a third terminal. Why are these on different terminals? So your dash lights are on a different terminal because on the back of a headlight switch, you'll often find like a little coily guy. That is like a rheostat, so that when you turn your knob, you can dim your dash lights. 9 times out of 10 on old cars, if your dash lights don't work, when you turn the knob, they're just always off. It's because this rheostat has burnt out. So you can just simply undo this wire and hook it up to your taillight wire and your dash lights will come on. They won't be dimmable anymore, but I mean, I've never understood why you would want to dim your dash lights to begin with. Most people want really bright dash lights. I have never ever driven a car down the road and been like, wow, these dash lights are way too bright. We got to turn those down. It's never happened. So your park lights, the reason your park lights are on a different terminal is because on like mid-60s and older cars, when you turned your headlights on, your park lights would go out. Why? I don't know. I've got my own theory that it's got something to do with less load on the generator, like on the charging system. And about the time that alternators came in the mid-60s, that parking light going out thing was kind of eliminated, and your park lights would just stay on all the time. So you pull it out, your second click, and that sends power to your last terminal, which are for your headlights. That one would go to the dimmer switch. So on a mid-60s and older car, second click just turns your headlights on. On a mid-60s and newer car, pull it out the second click, your headlights come on. On a mid-60s and older car, when you turn your headlights on, when you pull out to the second click, there is no longer power going to your park lights, and your park lights would turn off. So there you go. That's how a traditional headlight switch is wired up. Most switches have a little diagram on the backside. They'll have like a B and a T and a P and an H and I think the dash lights are sometimes an I for indicator lights. I don't know. You can usually figure it out with like if you sit down with a multimeter. Anyways, there's your headlight switch diagram. That's not important to us right now. This wiring diagram is the important one. So we'll bolt this in the car and then start hooking this up. So our switch is mounted. This little wheel back here is rubbing on there just like we wanted, so it turns the switch off. Isn't that great? Underneath here, I have mounted the flasher to this tunnel, just with a zip tie and some holes that were already there. And we've got our X, P, and L wires hooked up. The X wire, which is the power in, is going to our keyed fuse panel. So when you turn the key on, it gets power. I know I said earlier it's a 5 amp fuse, but it's actually a 15 amp fuse. I don't know why that one diagram I read said 5 amp. All the other ones all say 15 amps, so that's what we went with. So we've got power going in to our flasher, to our switch up here. Now we just need to run our power out, and we still got to do the brake light switch. I just turned the key on and turned our right signal light switch on, got the test light hooked up, and look at it go. It's so exciting. Well, I'm finally back on the 32. For those of you that watched part 1 of this video, your cars are probably done already, because from the time I started filming this wiring how-to till now, it's been like almost 2 months. You can tell because this is the third spot the 32 has been in the shop. And that blue Beaumont at the beginning of the video is like, the chassis is painted and it's on its way back together now. So it's been a really, really busy month, and I've had almost no time to work on the 32. But change that today. Lex and I are back in the shop, and we're gonna finish hooking these signal light wires up. So there was 32.5 seconds, I think 2 weeks ago, where I did get the brake lights hooked up. So I'll show you that. If we go up on our fuse panel here, where is it? I think this one, yeah, this guy up here we've got labeled as brake. So that's a constant 12 volt power all the time. We've got a wire running out of the fuse panel, and it goes down to our brake light switch. Coming out of our brake light switch, we go all the way back inside again, and then that wire hooks into our signal light wiring harness here. So what that does is we've got power going to the switch. You step on your brakes, that makes the switch, the pressure, it's a pressure switch, so the pressure... Who are you talking to? Anyways, the pressure from the brakes when you step on the pedal activate the switch, which then sends power back out and into here. Then we've got our brake light power going into here, and then it just comes out the right rear and left rear wires to the actual lights. So I think I don't have the front signal lights mounted yet, so let's just ignore those for now, and we'll get our rear lights run. We just got to run the wires from here to the appropriate tail lights, which are already on, and we've already got our wires here. We just simply need to connect them. So I chose orange, and I ran an orange wire to the right rear of the car. Did a bullet connector just like we were doing before. However, I did this one the opposite of the other one. And that way, if you ever take this light off and you're colorblind and can't figure out that green and green go together, by having these the opposite, there is no way that you could ever hook them up backwards. Our orange wire is now plugged into the right rear signal light. I realize it's starting to get a little messy here. Once we get this all done, then we can go ahead and tidy it up. But in the meantime, it's just that's how it goes. So if we turn our key on, turn our signal light switch on, we're flashing here. And if we go to the back, bam! Right turn, Batman. So then we turn right and we straighten out, boom. Light cancels. Amazing. I'm going to take this roll of dark green and use it for the left signal light. So I've only got so many colors of wire, so there will be some colors that are duplicated, but what I'm trying to do is make sure that when I do duplicate wires, they are in like totally separate spots. So originally I was going to use white wire, and then I realized that the wires going to my brake light switch are white. So I don't want to run a white wire next to a white wire. But I don't have any dark green going to the back. We got light green, but light green and dark green are not the same. So should be able to figure them out. Rear signal lights are done. I'm assuming the brake lights work, but I don't know for sure yet because I can't step on the brakes and stand at the back of the car and look at the lights at the same time. So Shannon and Lux went for a nap. So when Lux is back from his nap and I have help again, then we'll test the brake lights. In the meantime, we're gonna move on to the front. So these are those Thunderbird signal lights that I talked about, I think at the beginning. Can't remember if it was this video or the last video, but anyways, these are off of a mid-60s Thunderbird, and on the Thunderbird, they sit on the top of the fender like that and point backwards, and they were used instead of a little green indicator on the dash, like most cars have to let you know that your signal lights are on. So I've been saving these for like 10 years to use as signal lights on the front of a hot rod, and here we are. It's time to use them now. So I'm thinking probably mount them somewhere in there like that, I think would be probably the easiest. We've got one hole already here for our bumper bracket, so we could probably just drill 2 more holes and yeah, mount it somewhere like that. They'll be subtle and out of the way, but when you do see them, you know, they're pretty cool looking, so it'll be like, wow, that's neat. And at the same time, they're also like, you know, they should be pretty visible. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna have a coffee and sit and stare at this and come up with the best way to mount it. So sat here staring at it for a while, and I think this is definitely the spot that I want to put them. It'll be the easiest to mount. We've already got this hole here for the wire to go through. We just got to drill 2 holes, 2 little holes for these little studs. Actually, I took the studs out so I could mock it up. What I was concerned about was that it would be tucked in like a little too deep and you might not see them, but I think, you know, if you're across the intersection from this car and my left signal light is on, I think it'll be fine. And my Roadster doesn't have signal lights on the front at all, or the back. It just has one tail light and brake light on the back. That's all they had from the factory. And yeah, I've been driving that car for 13 years and with no signal lights at all, it's never been an issue. So I just use hand signals with that one, which nobody knows what that means anyways. They just assume I'm pointing at something. So this will definitely be an improvement over that. Drill some holes, mount these up. So I put some masking tape on here, and I've got the one with the studs in it. I'm gonna hold it about level. I think that's pretty level right there. And now I'll just push into the tape like that. And now we've got our little holes, or our little dimples in the tape where we know to drill our holes. If it is, once the car's on the ground and they are like not level with the ground, if I drill these holes a little bit oversized, I should be able to adjust it a little bit. Let's turn our switch on. Left signal light. Yeah. Right signal light. Bam. How about that? So, Shannon came by and we tested the brake lights. Got a brake light on one side, but not the other side. Don't know why. So I think it's probably inside that switch. This switch is like 100 years old, maybe even older. So I'll probably just take that apart again and clean all the contacts, make sure everything's working good. Not super worried about it, but you get the idea. You guys know what's going on, so just a little minor detail. Okay, so our lights are all done. Our ignition system's done. Our charging system is done. Our wiring is probably like 80% done. What we still have to wire up is we got to do a wiper motor. Got the wiper motor, but I haven't looked at installing it yet or what kind of fiasco that's going to be. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward. We still got to do a horn. So the car came with one of these Auga horns, the super cheesy Auga. Yeah, I don't know if I can put that back on. It's just a little too corny for me. And I like horns. I don't use horns very often, but when I do use a horn, there's a reason I'm using a horn. Like, light's green, man, let's go. Honk, honk, get moving. And an Auga horn, I don't think just has that. I want something that goes honk. What I really like is if you can get an old 6-volt horn and hook 12 volts up to that thing, that lets the guy in front of you know, like, get out of the way. We're moving here. So there's a swap meet in 2 days up island. So I think I'm going to hold off on the horn until we go to the swap meet in case I find one there. If I don't find one there, then maybe we'll just put this Auga horn on it and it'll be fine. I'll just look like an idiot when I'm mad. Get out of the way, Auga. I want to start putting loom on the car, some wire loom, but I'm not going to do this harness yet because we're still going to have a horn wire going through there. So we'll hold off until the horn's done on that. But like our ignition harness and stuff, that's all done. Our tail light harness, that's all done. Our headlights, signal lights, you know, all those harnesses are done. So we can start putting loom on them. This is the loom that I like to use. This is made by Performance World and it's called Performa Braid 3. Now, Performance World is a Canadian company, so I don't know if you can get it in other countries or in the States or whatever. You might be able to. I don't know if Performance World makes this. I think they just sell it. But I really like this stuff because it looks a lot like the early Ford asphalt loom. However, it is split. So the thing I like about that is you can take the split and just slide it over top of your harness. The original Ford asphalt loom, which you can still buy, by the way, it doesn't have a split in it, which means you gotta like feed each wire individually through that, and that sucks because you always forget. You really got to plan ahead with that. So this you don't have to. If you need to get into the harness for whatever reason, you can just pull it back. So we'll take some of this loom and we'll just tidy up the harnesses that are finished. So I've taken this P-clamp off here so that we can access it, and I've got these little guys here, and this is for putting loom on. You just simply slide it around your harness like that, twist it, and then you take your split end and slide it on there. And then you can just simply feed it along and it automatically slides it onto the harness as you pull. You're gonna go on the inside, pull that through, and then I got a junction here where it tees off. So this tool doesn't work around that. We'll have to do this last little part by hand, but you know, it gets the majority of it. So I ran our loom through the firewall, and I didn't go all the way up. I just went up to where there's like 3 harnesses that all intersect right there. So I just ended it there. It's gonna be fine. It's under the dash. Coming over to this side, we come through the firewall and wrap around down to there. Now for these 2 wires, they're considerably smaller. So I just used a smaller size loom, and I've got it run through there, and then where it intersects here, I just have this one goes into about there, and then this overlaps until there and then goes up. All right, I've got our headlight harness up front here, all done in loom. It's got the headlights up in here, they're all done in loom. This harness is done in loom. Headlight over on this side is done. Say hi, Shane. Got the back all put in loom now. So all that's left is this one here, but I'm not gonna do that until we get the horn, because the horn's probably gonna get mounted somewhere in this area. All right, I'm gonna call this video here because it seems like a good stopping point. We got most of the wiring done. We got our lights all done. So in the next video, we'll tackle, we got to wire up our horn still. We got to mount and hook up the wiper motor and heater fan. I haven't mounted the heater at all yet. It's really hard to think about a heater right now because it's gorgeous out. So, but it's not always going to be gorgeous out. We're going to need a heater at some point. So we'll have to wire that up. Little stuff too, like I want to put little charging ports in to charge my phone and stuff like that. So we'll tackle that stuff in the next video. Thanks everybody for watching. If you learned something about wiring that you can apply on your car and you want to say thank you, check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com, and get yourself some LG Speed and Custom merch, whether it's a shirt or even something as small as stickers. It all counts, it all adds up, and I appreciate it all. So check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com. Let me know your comments, your thoughts, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.